Okay, today we're going to do some basic Punnett square problems so that you can figure out what the probability is for you to get certain traits from certain parents. Um, we're going to follow this worksheet and give you some examples of how this works. So before you begin problems, you need to know what some of the terms are in the problems that would help you kind of just understand general idea about what they're asking you. So if they ask you about something that has a homozygous kind of trait, that means this has the same type of allele. An allele is a variation or type of a trait. Sometimes in genetics we use letters to represent traits. So if you are getting traits from both parents contribute to the trait. If you represent that by a letter, homozygous would mean that you have two of the same traits. Like if I use the letter A to represent a trait, you would have two capital A's, one from your mom, one from your dad. So that is homozygous. Or you could have two maybe lowercase letters for a trait. That would be the another variation of the trait. Okay. Down here, this term is heterozygous. Heterozygous means you have a different type of allele for a trait. If we were going to represent that by letters, we would say one parent gave you maybe a capital letter variation of the trait, one parent would give you a lowercase letter for the trait. So you would have this kind of letter combination. In problems, anytime you have an appearance that you're talking about, like what does something look like, that is a phenotype. So we'll just write appearance here. If they are asking about genotype, that is the genetic code for the trait. So like giving you letters for the codes like we did up here, like capital A's, lowercase a's, capital A, lowercase a, that is just a way to represent the genetic code with letters. Usually in problems we have dominant or recessive types of traits. Dominant traits are represented by capital letters, and that would be like a code, like a capital A for your code. Dominant traits are usually the most common traits. They show up the most in the general population. And then the other type of trait you could inherit from parents is a recessive trait. Those are usually represented by lowercase letters. So like up here, the two lowercase a's would be a recessive trait. So those are some of the terms that they would use in problems. Now if we go down here and we are looking at our first problem, they are telling you about rabbits and asking you about some traits about the rabbits. So in rabbits, they say black fur is dominant over white fur. So from above, we know that our dominant traits are usually represented by capital letters. And then it says, show the cross of a heterozygous black male with a homozygous white female. So we have to use some of the letters from above to help you know what are the codes of these parents and what kind of traits will the parents give their children when they pass them on. So let's start with the first parent. It says heterozygous black male. So heterozygous from above means different types of alleles. So your code is going to be like this: capital A, capital letter, lowercase letter. Now usually in genetics we use the letter that goes with the dominant trait. The dominant trait is black, so we're going to say that our first parent is capital B, lowercase b. It's heterozygous, and that's the code that we would get for the male. Now, a homozygous trait, or like homozygous for the other parent, is the homozygous white female. Now, homozygous means that you have the same kind of code, okay? Now it's white. White is the recessive trait, so we would have lowercase letters. So let's use lowercase letters to represent the female. So going back here, this was the male. And the female, let's make this a little bit bigger. Oops. The female is going to be lowercase b, lowercase b. It's kind of going on my screen here. Okay, so I fixed my screen here. Sorry about that. And here was the black male, the capital B, lowercase b. And then the homozygous white female is going to have two lowercase b's because it's the recessive trait, and it is homozygous. Remember, homozygous has two of the same kind of letters. Now these are our parents. We want to make sure that we can put these parents' traits together and get offspring. So if you look over here, a Punnett square is trying to organize that information and put it together so that you can figure out what are our chances of getting certain traits. The way you do that is you take these two codes, the capital B, lowercase b, and the two lowercase b's, and you put them on the sides of your Punnett square. It doesn't matter which side you put it on, like which parent goes where. You just had to put one parent on one side, one parent on the other side. So to do that, I'm going to just start out by get over here by my square. I'm going to put the capital B here, and I'm going to go over to the lower part of my square and put that lower letter down below. Okay, so this capital B goes to this side of the square, this lowercase b goes to the other side of the square. So this is the male, and then up here I'm going to put the female's code, genotype. That's okay. So here's lowercase b, and then I'm going to, oops, changed it on me here. Put another one right here. And once you have them set up like that, you would just pull those those letters into the squares. So let me see if I can write on it. Add some text. So you're taking the capital B from the side and the lowercase b from the top, and you're putting them into the square. Just drag them into the square. So here's our first code. One possible way that it could turn out. And you keep on doing that, going from the side and, oops, and the top. So here in this box, we go from the side and the top. Capital B, lowercase b. And then down here in the lower box, we would just go lowercase b, taking the letters from the side and the top. And then in this final square, fixed it on me here, we go over to the final square, and we take the letter from the side and the top. Lowercase b, lowercase b. So if you look at this, these four squares are supposed to represent what percent chance you have of getting these traits. Now on these codes, we have two lowercase b's and to that have a capital letter and lowercase letter. So each square represents 25% chance of having the trait. So for these parents and having these codes, we would have 25% chance of having capital B lowercase b, another 25% chance of capital B lowercase b. So altogether 50% chance of the offspring. I'm going to put it over here. 50% chance. 50% chance of having capital B lowercase b. And the bottom two squares over here, lowercase b, we have two of those. Each box represents 25% of a chance, so we have 50% chance of lowercase b. So for these parents, you would have half a chance of having black coloring as a rabbit and 50% chance of having white fur as a rabbit. Now, it doesn't always turn out the same way. It depends on the codes of the parents, but it did turn out that way for this situation. So that is one example of having doing a Punnett square.